I love that goal, Imani. Thanks for joining us tonight. We are ahead of the game. Sorry?
Not quite. I definitely feel supported now that I'm joining Toastmasters.
Awesome. Well, we're glad to have you.
Thank you.
Well, Vanessa, we have everybody except for Andrea Butterfly. So
Okay.
we can go ahead and start the meeting. Connor's not here, so I'm going to be the Sergeant of Arms. So
Oh, perfect.
we're officially starting the meeting. So welcome to Queen City Toastmasters. Tonight we have something a little different. The church's Wi-Fi is out, so we don't have the club view. I'll be panning the camera around as we're here, so it's just going to be the one camera showing the speaker. And I think I'm just going to go ahead and turn it over to the president because we'd have a full meeting. So please welcome Vanessa Waller, our president.
Thank you, David. Thanks so much for kicking us off. And welcome to all of our Toastmasters, both on Zoom and in person. I'm sorry I can't see all of you in person at the moment, but thank you so much, David, for your proactive efforts to get at least one of our cameras in great condition. And kudos to David for always getting all that tech support out of the way before our meetings start. That's a huge help. So grateful to have so many of you in person, as I can see from a quick glance at the speaker view. And I have been told we have a few guests, and I know we just got a chance to meet our guest, Imani. So welcome, Imani. Thanks for proactively introducing yourself. We usually have this time to welcome our guests and just allow them to introduce themselves. So it's great to meet you. And I think we have a few guests in person. So I believe we have, let's see, got a note that we have a Joe and a Carissa and a Maddox guests. So welcome, everyone. I don't know if one of you would like to.
Yeah, I'll have them introduce themselves for you, Vanessa. I'm sorry you can't see me on the camera, but we're going to start with Maddox.
No
he was here
problem.
last
Go for
week.
it.
And you want to say hello again?
Hello, everybody. My name is Maddox. This is actually my second time being here. I was here last week. I go to Myers Park. I'm 16 years old, and I just want to continue growing. I'm excited to keep working with you guys.
Thank you. Perfect. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Maddox.
Carissa is also a first timer. You want to say hello and how you heard about us?
Sure. So my name is Carissa Smith, and I heard about Toastmasters just by looking you up. I have done public speaking in the past in prior positions, but it's been a minute. So, you know, a lot of Zoom calls and things like that. And so I want to get back into the flow and, you know, hopefully get into some public speaking, but I wanted to do it live with live faces, live bodies. So that's what brought me here today. Thank you for having me.
Thanks for coming. Appreciate it. And we also have Joe. He's a first timer. You want to introduce yourself?
My name is Joe. First time here. I heard about Toastmasters by Googling and then talking to some people. So I just like to develop public speaking and not have anxiety when it comes to talking in front of people. So here I am.
Thank you for coming. And Vanessa, I'll turn it back over to you.
All right, thanks, David, for helping us welcome our guests. And since we do have a fairly packed agenda, although I think maybe one of our speakers had to postpone, we still have two speeches on the docket for today. So without further ado, I'd like to welcome our Master of Ceremonies for the evening, who is none other than Toastmaster Eric Laxer. So Eric, welcome. Let's give Eric a hand. I'll let you kick things off.
Thank you, Madam President. Modern man has brought this whole world to an awe-inspiring threshold of the future. He has reached new and astonishing peaks of scientific success. He has produced machines that think and instruments that peer into the unfathomable ranges of interstellar space. He has built gigantic bridges to span the seas and gargantuan buildings to kiss the skies. His airplanes and spaceships have dwarfed distance, placed time in chains, and carved highways through the stratosphere. This is a dazzling picture of modern man's scientific and technological progress. Yet in spite of these spectacular strides in science and technology, and still unlimited ones to come, something basic is missing. There is a sort of poverty of the spirit, which stands in glaring contrast to our scientific and technological abundance. The richer we have become materially, the poorer we have become morally and spiritually. We have learned to fly the air like birds and swim the sea like fish, but we have not learned the simple art of living together as brothers. Good evening, fellow Toastmasters and guests. These words were spoken by Dr. Martin Luther King, December 11th, 1964, when he received his Nobel Peace Prize. He was the youngest recipient to have received the Nobel Peace Prize at the time. As you know, yesterday was Martin Luther King Jr. Day, and it is in his honor that we dedicate the theme for tonight's meeting, What is in Your Life's Blueprint? Dr. King was a man with extraordinary courage, vision, and resolve, who made a mark on history that should never be forgotten. In his shortened life of just 39 years, he was a pastor, a leader, an organizer, a mentor, a role model. For 13 years during the 1950s and 60s, from the young age of 25 until his premature death at 39, he was the principal figure in the civil rights movement. His ability to communicate and deliver a message with purpose, meaning, and inspiration was outstanding. He had an impact on so many, not just in the United States, but all around the world, and his towering legacy continues to live on. Over the course of tonight's meeting, I would like to focus on two things related to Dr. King's legacy. One, highlighting parts of his life, and two, lessons from his speech that bears the title of tonight's meeting, What is in Your Life's Blueprint? We'll come back to our theme shortly, but for now, I'd like to introduce our joke master and inspirational speaker, Toastmaster Ali. Thank you.
Okay, blueprint. All right. How you guys doing tonight? It's like 10 of you guys in here. How are you guys doing tonight? I mean, my God, it's like 10 of you guys in here. Where's your energy at? It is what it's been for the past couple months while I've been going. Just low energy. All right, so I had low-key thought that was him who made that up. I was thinking in my head like, man, that's some analytical stuff. And then he said Martin Luther King, and I was like, makes sense. All right. Okay, so basically I have like 1 minute and 50 seconds. What's in your life blueprint? So when I think of Martin Luther King, I think of this one quote that my uncle told me about. He said, a man who has nothing worth dying for has nothing worth living for. And so basically what I took from that is whatever you believe in, whatever you want out of life, you got to be willing to lose your life, or you got to be willing to give something up, or do whatever it takes to get it. And basically what I'm saying is that you have to be willing to do whatever it takes to get to wherever you want to be. You got to be willing to sacrifice a lot of things. And I had a conversation with this girl last week, and I was telling her, I was like, you have to, you're gonna have to maybe struggle a little bit, and you're gonna have to make some cold calls, and you got to do this. And she's like, God doesn't want me to go through the struggles. I'm like, God don't want you to go through the struggles. It says faith without works is dead. You could all that believing and all that manifestation, but you have to go out there and do it. And she's like, I don't want to do the work. I'm like, you're wasting time. You're literally wasting time. So with that, I'm just saying, like, just be willing to do whatever it takes, and know that if you have a dream or something you believe in, be willing to lose your life for it if you know that that's what your purpose is. Back to you, Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you, Toastmaster Ali. That was great. I would now like to introduce several other Toastmasters who will be playing different roles in the meeting this evening, starting with our grammarian, Afia Gabriel.
Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster. Fellow Toastmasters and guests, as grammarian, it is my responsibility to pay close attention to all speakers, listening carefully to their language usage. I'll take note of any improper language, as well as outstanding words, quotes, sayings, and thoughts. As grammarian, it is also my duty to introduce the word of the day. For today's meeting, the word of the day is society, which means a group or community of people who have a common tradition, institution, or interest. And in the spirit of yesterday's memorial of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., an example of the word of the day is in one of his quotes, which says, "We must come to see that the end we seek is a society at peace with itself, a society that can live within its conscience." Each speaker is encouraged to use the word of the day. I will give the grammarian's report upon being called upon during the meeting, and also report on the usage of the word of the day. Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you, Afia. I would now like to call upon our timer, who will be Toastmaster Gabe this evening.
Thank you, Toastmaster, and good evening, fellow Toastmasters and guests. My name is Gabe Llewellyn, and I have the role of timer. So I will be using several different lights to indicate which portion of the speech you are in, and they will give you an indication of where you're at. So it will be green, yellow, and red. And at the end of this evening, I will give you a report as to how you did based on your speech. I also want to say that I am excited about Dr. Harvey's speech, because he is in part giving it because of me, because I gave that speech, or I give him that area or that section. So looking forward to it, Dr. Harvey. With that, hope we have a wonderful society meeting tonight.
Thank you. I would now like to call upon our ballot counter, Toastmaster Lon.
Thank you, Toastmaster. Good evening, fellow Toastmasters and guests. My name is Lon, and I will be the ballot counter for tonight. And just as it says, I will be counting up the ballots for tonight for each categories. The categories are the best speakers, best evaluators, and the best table topics for tonight. And at the end of the meeting, I will come back up here and announce the winner for each category. So at this time right now, go ahead and tear out the ballot for this meeting. So on the top portions, you can write any feedback that you may have for each of the speakers, and I will come and collect them as we go. And the bottom ones, you'll vote for each of the speakers that will be speaking tonight. And I'll probably come around during the meeting to collect those. So back to you, Toastmaster. Oh, the top is where you'll give feedbacks to each of the speakers, any kind of notes that you may have, such as improvements or things that they do a really good job on.
Thank you, Toastmaster Lon. Excellent. Dr. King was born in Atlanta, January 15th, 1929, where his father and his grandfather were pastors at Ebenezer Baptist Church dating back to 1894. He attended public school. He was granted early acceptance to college. He graduated from Morehouse at the age of 19 with a BA in sociology. He then received his bachelor's of theology from Crozer Theological Seminary in Pennsylvania and completed a doctorate in theology from Boston University in 1955. It was in Boston where he met his future wife, Coretta Scott, who was a music major and also a civil rights activist. Coretta Scott deserves recognition in her own right. She came from a family of poverty in Alabama, which was a deeply segregated part of the country. In high school, Coretta Scott played trumpet, piano, she sang, she participated in school musicals, and more impressively, she was her class valedictorian. Her parents had very limited formal education, but insisted that she go to college, which she did. Dr. King and Coretta were married in 1953 and shortly afterwards moved to Alabama, where he became pastor at Dexter Avenue Baptist Church in Montgomery. Montgomery was one of the hotspots for civil rights. Issues escalated in 1955, shortly after Dr. King arrived, when Rosa Parks, a young African-American woman, refused to give her seat on a bus to a white woman. This resulted in a decision by the Montgomery community, African-American community, to boycott the use of public buses. Dr. King, at 26, was elected leader of the bus boycott, which lasted 381 days and resulted in a Supreme Court ruling that bus segregation was unconstitutional. However, this did not wipe away the issues of racial discrimination and intolerance. 2 days after the integration of Montgomery buses, somebody fired a shotgun through Dr. King's house. He, his wife, and his 6-week-old daughter were asleep at the time and fortunately were unharmed. 6 weeks later, their home was bombed and the front third of it was destroyed. His wife, a friend, and their daughter were present at the time and miraculously were unharmed. In 1960, Dr. King and his family moved back to Atlanta, where he became co-pastor at Ebenezer Church with his father. Already well known, his leadership in the civil rights movement grew. Dr. King's greatness was not just in what he did and what he stood up against, but how he did it. Despite the actions of those around him, he advocated for a movement of nonviolence. His approach was based on his deeply founded Christian beliefs and Gandhi's nonviolent civil disobedience, which brought India to independence several decades earlier. To quote Dr. King, "We do not want to instill fear in others or into the society of which we are a part of. The movement seeks no victory over anyone. It seeks to liberate American society and share in the self-liberation of all the people. In the process of gaining our rightful place, we must not be guilty of wrongful deeds. Let us not satisfy our thirst for freedom by drinking from the cup of bitterness and hatred." He believed love was a guiding principle and a unifying force. I would now like to move on to the speakers portion of the evening. We have a slight change in our order. Our second speaker, Sarah Mary, is going to go first. She's doing her strategic relationships pathway, understanding your leadership style. She will be speaking to us on leadership with the world's best boss. Please join me in welcoming her.
Okay, hi. So I have had the pleasure and sometimes the displeasure of working for many different bosses with varying leadership styles. None have been more inspiring to me than who I consider to be the world's best boss. He's none other than, it's okay, Michael G. Scott. Michael Scott is a fictional character who plays in an American sitcom called The Office. He's the regional manager of a paper company located in Scranton, Pennsylvania called Dunder Mifflin. Now, before you go and write Michael off as fictional or silly or as somebody who we can't learn anything from, let me just share this statistic with you. On Netflix alone, The Office has been streamed for over 57.13 billion minutes. Now, while this shows that Americans might have a little too much time on their hands, it also shows that Michael Scott has been deeply influential in our culture. And I do think that there's something to learn from him. Today, what I'd like to do is I'd like to share 3 lessons that I've learned from Michael Scott's leadership. And then you can click. I'd like to apply that to the 8 types of leadership that Toastmaster has laid out to us and figure out which ones Michael Scott exemplifies and which ones he does not. So let's start with his first lesson, encourage your employees. Michael Scott never misses an opportunity to celebrate his employees. Whether that's he says Do I have someone special in my life? Well, yeah, of course, a bunch of them, my employees. He loves them like family. And whether this is for better or for worse, this is just how he feels. He celebrates them for birthdays, for holidays, or even at his fictional award ceremony called the Dundies, where he gives out actual trophies for awards based on having the whitest sneakers or being the office stickler. There's no quality too small that Michael Scott will not celebrate. I think that the best example of how he encourages his employees was at an art show. His office secretary, Pam Beasley, was finally presenting her hard work. She invited everybody in the office to come, and nobody showed up. After hearing some snobs say that her work was no better than motel art, she was about to tear down her artwork when all of a sudden, Michael Scott walked through the door. He apologized for being late, and he was mesmerized by one image in particular, an image of the office. He said, "Wow, that's so good it could be a stencil." And he meant it. He was extremely excited that Pam would think the office was worth drawing. And in that moment, that was the encouragement Pam needed. And in her character arc, it became a turning point for Pam becoming a better version of herself. He also really cared about company culture. In fact, when the Scranton branch was in fear of downsizing, instead of going into business as usual, Michael made everybody talk with an accent, pick out a costume, and he staged an incredible whodunit game. This was a way for him to get his employees to lean on one another, share a laugh, and just shoulder a really scary time with one another instead of pretending like it wasn't happening. And I think that really shows a boss who cares about his employees. Lesson number 2, keep meetings engaging. I don't know about all of you, but I have been to one too many meetings that really should have been an email. Michael Scott knew how to keep his meetings interesting. He said, "That means conference room, 5 minutes. No, 5 seconds, let's go." And he loved to put all of his team in a conference room and have a meeting. He mostly liked this because he loved an audience and an opportunity to brag. However, he did enjoy asking them questions and getting their feedback. Whether or not he took it is a different question, but he did enjoy their creativity. He also kept it interesting. He showed up in costume and sometimes even made up songs and dances. This was actually a rap that he came up with one of his fellow employees for an employee orientation event. One thing you can't say about Michael Scott is that he never held a meeting that should have been an email. Next. Fake it till you make it. Michael Scott truly believed he was the world's best boss. He said, "Sometimes I'll start a sentence and I don't know where it's going. I hope to find it somewhere along the way, like an improv conversation, an improvisation." Michael Scott bought this mug for himself at Spencer's, but he truly felt like it embodied who he was. And don't some of the most successful people in the world tell us that when we're aspiring to be something different or be something better, we shouldn't say, "Oh gosh, I can't wait to get there." We need to say, "No, I am there. I am that person." We embody that change. We embody that person we want to be. And then we act accordingly. Michael Scott was very convinced that he was the world's best boss. And he acted like he thought the world's best boss would act. And he dressed like he thought the world's best boss would dress. He got it wrong sometimes, absolutely, but he was doing his best. And at the beginning of this sitcom, I don't think that any of his employees would have said he was the world's best boss. But by the end, I know for certain that some of them said he was the best boss they'd ever had. Okay, now let's look at the 8 leadership styles that Toastmaster has given to us and figure out which ones Michael Scott represents. First, I think he's altruistic. You can click. He definitely put the needs of his employees first and foremost, no matter what. Their well-being was of his greatest concern. Second, he was democratic. He loved having his meetings and he loved asking for their opinions. Again, whether he listened to it or not, he often didn't, but he did like to hear them talk. Number 3, he was affiliative. He used his personal relationship with each one of his employees to create more productivity and more creativity in his office instead of stifling every individual with rules. He was not authoritative because he could not cast a vision for his team and help them get there. And he certainly wasn't bureaucratic because the only rule Michael Scott followed was that there were no rules. Let me just leave you with this quote. You will miss 100% of the shots that you do not take. Michael G. Scott. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah Mary. I would like to now introduce our second speaker, who is doing her dynamic leadership pathway, understanding your communication style, with her speech titled, Can't You Wait? Please join me in welcoming Toastmaster Andrea.
Can't you wait? I was 7 years old, sitting in the back seat of my godmother's car when her and her cousin were having a conversation. So every time her cousin who stuttered, and I'm not against anybody who stutters, and I am not laughing at you, because you can get through it, right? You can start singing and develop your vocal variety, but she had not had that privilege. She was born in a different time. So she was trying to communicate, and she was saying, I was, and my godmother would say, going to the store? Yeah, but then I would get in the in the door, and I, yeah, but I couldn't get the you couldn't get the door open? Can't you wait? That's what she said. She wanted her to just let her talk. She was doing her absolute best. And sometimes when people are trying to communicate with you, they just need you to give them some time. They may need some space for you to listen. How many of us have been in a classroom where we felt like the teacher just was not an effective communicator and we tuned them out? Right. And I have been one of those students. So I'm going to give you a tip. I had a teacher who liked to read out the textbook. Now, I done paid all this money for college, but you want to read out the textbook that I done spent all this money for and read myself. Give them grace. That's their way of doing their best. And what they're reading is what you need to pay attention to. And I learned that very quickly because everything he read was on his test. Now, it was the most painful time for me, but he needed me to sit there and wait. Wait for the understanding. Ask a question if you do not. It is our job to let the person who's communicating with us know that we can't wait. To let them know that we can't wait. And I thought about that as we just celebrated Dr. Martin Luther King's birthday, and he had a dream. He had a dream that one day we would actually understand, because we can no longer wait. We can no longer sit by and wait for somebody else to tell us where we belong. We can no longer sit by and wait for somebody else to validate who we are. So today, I ask you not to wait. I know I said, can't you wait? But no longer can we wait for a time and a place for us to stand up and speak up. And that takes me to what Toastmasters says is the 4 styles of communication. And I'm going to use Dr. Martin Luther King to do so. And when I was preparing this speech, I was like, okay, what am I going to do? Because I was so concentrated on doing something else in communication, communicating a different message out this week, as a lot of you know. And I said, what does that have to do with communication? Like, why am I so concentrated on this? And why am I not concentrating on this speech? Because all I had was, can't you wait? And I said, it's because, Andrea, you have a dream that you can't wait to express. You have a dream that you can't wait to tell someone else. You have a dream that you can empower people by not waiting. And it's a funny story from my childhood, but it's true. We can't wait anymore. So Dr. Martin Luther King, I looked at his style and you know, they say that if you're initiative, you're not supportive. And if you're direct, you're not analytical. And it's just not true. The most effective communicators are all of those things. Let's think about Dr. Martin Luther King's speech. He was very strategic or analytical in the way that he delivered that speech. He used common themes to get people to understand and to listen and in tune and communicate his message. Then he was so direct in the way he said, we have been served a check that has bounced. Who didn't get that message? That was a very direct message that we need these insufficient funds of opportunity to be given to these people. It was no indirect message there. And then I'm going back to the top two, the initiative and supportive. He took the initiative because he wasn't going to give that speech on August 28, 1963. He had a whole nother speech in mind. But he chose that time and realized in his analytical mind and his direct self that he needed to support a people. And see, a lot of people thought he was just supporting Black people. But Dr. Martin Luther King said all little children, little boys and girls. He said Black and white men, Protestants and Jews. He said everybody come together at the table of brotherhood. That was his message. Who didn't get that dream? Who didn't understand that message? So I aspire to have that same vigor when I give my speech, when I give my message, and when I tell you, you can't wait. You can't wait to be you, butterfly. You cannot wait to be empowered. Our children, they need us. The next generation, they need us. Empower their dreams. If you see a little kid that just wants to sing a song, say, go write one. If you see a kid who likes to tinker and take things apart, find out, give them something to take apart. Because that might be the next person that builds the vehicle to take us to the next level. I have a dream to empower every child that I meet and every woman of color that I meet with this dream and empower them to pursue their dreams. What about you? Can't you wait? Thank you.
Thank you, Toastmaster Andrea. I'd like to introduce our final speaker, who is also working on his dynamic leadership pathway, understanding your leadership style. And it is Toastmaster Dr. Harvey Tran, whose speech title is Walking into the Unknown. Dr. Tran.
Thank you, Toastmaster Dr. Laxer. Can you guys hear me? Great. Toastmaster, Toastmaster, and Toastmaster. Good evening, fellow Toastmaster and honorable guests. I'm very honored, very excited to have you all here with us. For example, I'd like to give a shout out to my mentee, Maddox. At 16 years old, he already launched his first business. And instead of staying at home, he has all the reason to make the excuses, but he is here with us today. So thank you, Maddox, and congratulations. Thank you all to the new guests. As you guys will see, Toastmaster is the perfect platform for you to hone in your skills so that you can realize your dream, so that you can leave your footprint into the society. Now, as part of my speech, which I took on the last minute notice, there's no excuse, but I'm going to deliver to you to the best of my ability. So as part of my speech, I'm on the dynamic leadership pathway, the level 2. Let me read this to you. Dynamic leadership is understanding the importance of inspiring others, achieving success through teamwork, rather than trying to dominate conversation or micromanage tasks. They help to nurture the growth of all team members. Blah, blah, blah. You know what? Here's my speech. All right, guys, there's more. All right. As you can see from Dr. Laxer's speech, he mentioned about Dr. Martin Luther King leaving footprint in our society. Now, as I'm delivering my speech, I want you guys to think about what kind of footprint or blueprint you want to live in your own life, your own family, your own society through dynamic leadership. For me, I'll be very straightforward. I want to build tremendous wealth, making tens of billions of dollars with a B, not an M, and also to increase my power, political power. I'm aspiring to be selfish so that I can have the resource to be generous, to help the people in Charlotte as well as worldwide. Now, let me share with you guys this. This one I did not tear up. Look at this, guys. So this graph is based on a Science Direct article. As you see in that graph, and I can send you the link later, there's no correlation to IQ versus your income. In other words, the people you see at the country club, the angel investor, the multimillionaires, all the high-profile CEO, not small business owner. We talk about roll-up big acquisition company, Fortune 500 guys. Guess what? They are no smarter than you. So in this speech, I like to, which is under the title, Walking into the Unknown, I like to share with you the story of what is that differentiating factor that allowed them to garner their success, and how we can emulate that and incorporate into our life as you decide to build whatever blueprint that you want to build. Now, I like visual, as you guys can tell. Check out this tool that I used to walk into the unknown. This is actually from Vietnam, made in Vietnam or China, but I got it in Vietnam. I was so poor back then. I always keep this one because this is the only shoe that I could afford. Now, fast forward to today, when I walk into the unknown, look at this, for my 3-year-old daughter, for me, and then, oh, that was my wife, and then for me. So now we are still walking into the unknown, but we just have better footwear. My story is this, guys. I started out as a blogger, nothing new. I mean, nothing fancy, very humbling experience. Also selling supplement at GNC. But my background is as a, was that the yellow up already? Okay, all right. So, okay, good. So I came from a very academic background as an MD, MS from Columbia University, but I was just so poor. I was just so poor back then because I did not have a mentor. I was never learned about business in school. I was never taught about leadership. I have the IQ, but I just don't know the approach and practices. I did not embrace the unknown like the way that I am today. So when I met my mentor, I share with you guys this story, different aspect of my life. So now I want to dive into the aspect where I met my most powerful mentor. So the gentleman lived in a big castle in Scotland. Now, after I learned from his mentee, I was able to make $1 million in a year, just in that first year with my IR, PR consulting, my writing, accumulating the various skills together. So I wanted to take it to the next level. I bought all of in following his teaching, he told me, go ahead, spend it all. Put your back against the wall so you can make more. I did exactly what he told. I bought this house cash, bought a Porsche, bought so many purses and stuff for my wife and also for my kid. So now my back is up against the wall, and then I had only $40,000 left in that range. I spent it all to go to see another mentor. So when I went in there, it's this big castle. I met all these high-profile CEO, multi-millionaire, and then we developed a friendship. It was so scary. I was never been to Europe before. It's the first time to travel that far, to be in a completely different environment, but I embraced that unknown and embraced that path of walking into the unknown, taking the path that diverged. And then over time, I pick up all the skills. And with that, I launched High Performance Healthcare. So High Performance Healthcare is a roll-up company. We have 9 stellar board members, who are people who groom company into hundreds of millions of dollars, into multi-billion dollars. So how can I lead such a pack? People who have gray hair, who have no hair, men and women with tremendous track record of accomplishment and experience. That's when I leverage on that dynamic leadership. As part of that, here are the key principles from that dynamic leadership. I never reprimand member and colleague. I treat them like my colleague with respect. I always ask them questions to see how their action affect me, and then asking them to focus on next time. 2, I encourage them to make mistakes, to foster innovation. 3, I lead by example, always being the first one to show up, the last one to leave. By fostering continual change in practice, technology, even culture, but always preserve our core value. That is to deliver the best quality of care for the patient, building tremendous wealth for ourselves and respecting one another. So fellow Toastmaster, I know this speech I was not well prepared, and my apology, but I want you to get something out of your time. If you did not get anything out of this, I want you to think about what kind of blueprint you want to build, and I encourage you to walk into the unknown. Do something that you're so afraid of, that you have not seen anyone else has done before. Focus on that. I know I forgot the name because I tear the sheet already, but one of our guests saying that she wants to go to TED Talk show. Do that. Focus, work on getting to TED Talk, building your TED Talk. And also for Julian, move up that corporate ladder. There's nothing that's different between that CEO, CFO, or secretary, general counsel. There's nothing different from you. And also Maddox, launch your second business. Forget about that first business. And to all of you guys, I strongly believe with all my heart and my soul that you can do it. Walk into that unknown, embrace that unknown as you move forward in this new year 2022. Thank you so much for your precious time.
Thank you, Dr. Tran. Thank you to all of our speakers. Just a reminder to everybody that the word of the day is society. And with that, I'd like to call upon our timer for a timer's report, Toastmaster Gabe.
Thank you, Toastmaster. All right, excellent speeches. Really enjoyed all of them. So for the first speech, Sarah, great job. You came in right under 7 minutes, so six minutes and 52 seconds, so great job. Our second speech, Andrea, great job. You came in right at 7 minutes, so nicely done. And Dr. Tran, you came in a little long, right under 8 minutes, but it was worth every minute. So thanks so much.
So what is in your life's blueprint? This was a speech Dr. King gave to junior high school students in Philadelphia in October 1967, 6 months before he was assassinated. Although his speech was targeting young African Americans, there are many messages in his speech that were universal. He used the analogy that just as a blueprint was important in constructing a building and making it more stable, having a blueprint in your life was very important for your life course. I'd like to share a few points from the speech that he made. Number one, have a deep belief in your own dignity and your own worth. Quote, don't allow anybody to make you feel that you're a nobody. 2, have the determination to achieve excellence in whatever field you choose. Dr. King stated, set out to do it as if God Almighty called you at this particular moment in history to do it. 3, an inspiration he quoted from Ralph Waldo Emerson stated, if a man can write a better book, preach a better sermon, make a better mousetrap than his neighbor, even if he builds his house in the woods, the world will make a beaten path to his door. That brings us to our table topics section, and I'd like to ask you to join me in welcoming Toastmaster Julian, who will be leading table topics. Thank you.
Good evening, members and guests. I'm on Zoom tonight, but I will be your table topics master this evening. For guests who don't know, this is a section of the meeting where I will ask a few questions, and generally we ask questions that kind of go along with the theme. That's what I'm doing tonight. And so I'll ask you kind of a impromptu question. They're pretty general. There's a lot, these are open-ended, and you will have 1 minute to 2 minutes to respond. And guests, don't worry about the time. Just, we would love for you to participate if you want. And with that being said, I think we have one guest on Zoom. So I'm gonna ask, would you like to do one? And I think it's Imani, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, awesome. Would you like to do one?
Sure.
Okay. All right, so the first question I'm asking Imani is, what are some long-term goals you would like to achieve in the next 10 to 30 years?
Wow. A major goal I would like to achieve is a TED Talk. I really would love to actually do my own TED Talk. So that is a huge goal. Within the next 5 years, 10 years, I would like to create my own blockchain agency assisting small businesses to create their own tokens for their meta business.
Awesome. Great answer. Those are definitely some big goals. And I guess we'll see how the whole metaverse plays out, but I'm interested to see. So, all right. So I think that is our only guest online. And let's see. Yes, we have a couple in person, and I'll ask. I think that we have Carissa. Would you like to volunteer for a question?
You're asking me the question, or I'm okay. Okay. Take this off.
And guests, I know I'm putting you on the spot, but it's we love for guests to participate. So,
okay.
Are you ready for the question?
Yes. Oh.
Okay. Awesome.
Yes.
So, who is one person that you admire and why?
One person that I admire. One person that I admire, I would say, would be my father. My father was a very gentle human being. He was a family man, but not only that, he was a brilliant man. Back in the early 70s, he and my mother started a government contracting business when it was very difficult for African Americans to gain government contracts. And he helped her grow that business to a $20 million business. And they used many resources. On top of that, he was also developing, before he passed, the first janitorial government bidding software, which I still have the blueprints to, that has since been, developed. But he was a forward thinker, and he made sure that his children were also forward thinkers. And not only that, he was also a Navy veteran. So he is one person who has inspired me.
Great answer. Impressive, something to be admired. So I think we have time for one more. I will see if we have any volunteers in person, and if not, then we can have a member volunteer.
Julian, can you call on Maddox? Tell him that my mentee, that I want him to volunteer.
Dr. Tran, just so you know, his arm was starting to go up, so he was actually calling himself.
Awesome. All right, so Maddox, you get the last question.
Okay. I'm all ready.
Last question. How do you want to be remembered when you're gone?
Okay. One way I'll remember when I'm gone is someone who always chases dreams and always achieve their goals. Someone like Dr. Harvey, he's accomplished many things. And he's always going to go out and inspire people just by his story. And I always want to do something like that and inspire young people. Hopefully I'll be in a position by the time my time comes, I'll be in a position to inspire people just like Dr. Harvey inspired people my age. So that's also something I want to do. Another thing I want to do is show people that they can accomplish anything they can do. Something like my mom and many mentors in my life, not just Dr. Harvey. They always instilled that in me, and that's something I want to do in the generations to come and people younger than me and things of that sort. And I thank you very much for listening.
Great job, Maddox. I wish I had been coming to Toastmasters at your age. It's inspiring that you're here, and a great answer. So I think that wraps up our table topics. I think we're almost out of time. Great job, everyone. Great answers, and thank you, guests, for participating. I'll go ahead and turn it back over to you, Eric.
Thank you, Mr. Table Topics Master. Can we please now have a timer's report from Toastmaster Gabe? Thank you.
All right. Great job, everyone, on your table topics. Imani, nice job. You came in at 40 seconds, so nicely done. Carissa, great job on your speech. You came in at 1 minute and 10 seconds. Nicely done. And Maddox, nicely done. You came in at 45 seconds.
Thank you, Gabe. I would now like to turn the microphone over to Toastmaster Jenny, who is our general evaluator tonight. Please join me in welcoming her.
Thank you, Toastmaster Eric. So I'll be tonight's general evaluator. And before I get into evaluating the meeting overall, I'm going to introduce the evaluators for each speech. So the first evaluator is Allie, which is going to be evaluating Andrea's speech.
Andrea left, right? Yeah. All right. I looked back and I was like, where is Andrea at? And I was like, oh my God. But you know, Andrea, first I want to say, should I talk to this right here? Or should I talk to you guys? All right. All right. First, I want to say that when you came up here, every time you come up and give a speech, I feel like I'm in a poet summit. I want to start snapping my fingers like this because of the vibe you get off. And you got me, because I was like, this is a speech about stuttering. So I had no clue that you were getting ready to go into a speech about not waiting and basically moving with a sense of urgency. I was thinking that you're getting ready to tell a story about how your cousin stuttered, how maybe you should give people, don't interrupt. You know, we're a more sensitive generation than the ones before us. I thought you were going to go into that, talk about being sensitive towards people's feelings. And then all of a sudden it just transpired to the total opposite. And it shocked me. I think it shocked everybody in here. I also noticed when you give a speech that you have good hand gestures and eye contact with the audience. I like how you basically ask questions, and you basically, like the question you talk about school, I can tell you for a fact, out of my 4 years at high school, listen, I was a C&D student. I didn't get nothing out of it. All right, I'm just being honest with you guys. I really didn't get nothing out of it. It really helped me in my life besides just meeting some good people. But I liked how you made that correlation with the story about your professor, but then how about how your cousin, because to be truthfully honest with you, you're correct. If you have somebody who is going through some type of problems and can't you wait, like you said in your speech, is we all need to move with a sense of speed and a sense of urgency, because the story about the tortoise wins the race is not true. The person who moves with speed is the person who wins the race. And I really admired that in your story. And that's pretty much it. I don't really have anything bad to say about the speech to give you any feedback. I feel like it was a great speech overall and everything was fantastic.
Great. Thank you, Toastmaster Ali. And I'm going to introduce the next evaluator. That's going to be David Jones, evaluating Sarah Mary's speech. Welcome, Toastmaster David.
Thank you, Madam General Evaluator. I have to admit that I was engrossed in your speech. I forgot to write notes. I was just like watching it. I was like, because it's such an interesting story that everybody could relate to. And that's a great speech when everybody relates to the story. I think most people have seen The Office, very few have not. And as I was doing the slides, I was just missing the slides too. You're giving the little cues because I was just like so engrossed in your story. But obviously you're a great speaker and entertaining, engaging. You picked a topic that everybody likes. And it was, hold on, I forgot. What's the word of the day? Society really likes. I had to get that in there. Now, you asked me to check on a couple things for you. First was your pace. You had the perfect pace. It just seemed you're obviously an established speaker. I mean, you're just very good at it. Your pace was great. Your hand movement was great because you also had to motion to me to give you to move the slide along. And your vocal variety was good. There wasn't a lot you had to do, but I think when you spoke to about Michael, you might have changed your tone a little bit. So everything that you were looking for, you did really well, and I appreciate that. What else? Like I was trying to think of something that we could room for improvement. I couldn't do it. Again, for those of you that don't know, she is with South Park, which is another club that is our sister club now. So she is an accomplished speaker. So she's not like brand new. So that's why she's such a great speaker. But I enjoyed hearing your speech. I think you did move around a little bit. Maybe you could have moved around more. That would be only because I like when speakers, and you got to have a lot of confidence and a lot of skills, but to be able to walk into the audience and maybe touch somebody on the shoulder, it just kind of makes everybody wake up and say, what is she going to do next? And you won't lose their attention. I still struggle to walk around and do things like that. But yeah, so that's really all I had for you. It was a great speech, very entertaining, and look forward to the next one because I know you're on a roll and you really want to do them. Back to you.
Thank you, Toastmaster David. And now I'm going to call up Stuart Bryson, which is going to evaluate Dr. Harvey Tran's speech. Welcome, Toastmaster Stuart.
Thank you, Jenny. Toastmasters and honour guests, Dr. Tran, we had the pleasure of listening to yet another fantastic speech from yourself on how to build a blueprint for your personal life. I thought you did an especially good job considering that, as you say, this was last minute. I always appreciate that you acknowledge the people in the room who have come along with you, whether it be your wife and daughter or your mentee Maddox. I always think that's a very nice touch. As always, a very powerful intro. I think this is now becoming part of your brand. It's a trademark every time you start a speech. Maybe it'll wear on some people, but I still really enjoy it. I think this time you added some additional hand gestures as well. You kind of look like you're getting more comfortable with that, and I would totally encourage that you continue with that. You also gave us some fantastic visual aids, with the footwear, with the chart. I think these are all very engaging things. You shared your own personal goals, your own personal method for building your blueprint, which I think the audience can really appreciate, as these are personal things. And I definitely think that this helps to keep the attention of the audience. You described the process of working with your mentor in that first year and achieving a large amount of success in a very short time. And I know, based on the other stories, the other speeches that you've given, that you have some fantastic life experiences. And I know that you must have some incredible stories. And I would always encourage you to try and work one of those in. The speech you did last week was a perfect example about, or 2 weeks ago perhaps, about skydiving. I think you should always have something like that in there and build your speech around that, because I'm sure you have some incredible stories. You continue to use your hands well. Even though you were on Zoom, you still appeared to be very engaged with the audience, and you moved around well. You gave a very motivating speech as always, discussing how we should embrace the unknown and set high goals. I thought overall this was a very valuable and interesting speech, as always. Thank you.
Thank you, Toastmaster Stuart. And at this point, I'd like to call Gabe back up for timer's report for the evaluators.
I did not do the timer report on the evaluators. So Great job, everyone. Back to you, Jenny.
Thank you. So I guess that leaves me to evaluate the meeting a little early, so a little bit more time, which is good. So I thought it was a fantastic meeting. Eric, it's just such a pleasure to see you as Toastmaster. Your leadership style is incredible, and I don't know what you do for your work or your career, but I hope that you lead a team of employees because you just have such poise and something about you that is really magnetic and kind of peaceful but impactful, which is just such a great quality to have as a leader. So I thought you did a fantastic job for Toastmasters. The theme was just so relevant, right? And on point for this week with Martin Luther King Jr. I loved how you opened with a current event and it was a really kind of like an excerpt, which was different. And, you know, people always say that you shouldn't kind of read, but I thought in this case, it really kind of lended itself well to the theme. And Ali was like, oh, I felt like I was like in a history class or something, which was good. We were learning, you were teaching us something, which I thought was great. I think just the way that you always have, reminders of people using the word of the day, society, and kind of structure and kind of quotes throughout was really great. So thank you for leading another great Toastmasters. Something I really loved about all the different speeches was the theme of leadership really throughout, and the influence that leadership has on our society. So I thought that was really just very well tied into today's theme, particularly Sarah, Mary. I loved your speech, and it was such a clever way to tie in The Office, like, pop culture, and everybody can really resonate with that. And stepping into your power. One thing that I've learned in business is that everybody is fake it till you make it. I mean, people that have huge companies, they're really just kind of, learning as they go. And it's just stepping into your power is so important. So I thought that was really kind of like landed for me from yours. Andrea is just incredible. I loved your speech and the whole, don't wait, the time is now, and not really sticking to societal constructs of, what you should be doing or whatnot. You need to just create your own path and combine all types of communication styles. Why do you have to fit into one box? So I thought that was really kind of powerful and tying into today's theme of what's in your life blueprint, like you design your blueprint. So I thought that was great. And Dr. Harvey Tran is always just so delightful to watch. Something that makes, always resonates with me is that you have the ability to take a very serious topic and make it so lighthearted in the way that you open up your speeches, which is just, it makes people feel good from the get-go. And that is always just a great way to do your speech. And so that's really my evaluation for this evening. I thought everything was great. I love that Maddox is here and you're so young, and this is such a great, place for you to start to really kind of build, your professional skill set and social skills and all that. So it's just, I can't wait to see what you do with your life. And I'll hand it back over to our Toastmaster.
Thank you, Toastmaster Jenny. And for our results, I'd like to call upon our ballot counter, Toastmaster Lon. Round of applause.
All right, so the best speaker for tonight goes to Sarah. And for the best table topics for tonight goes to our guest, Carissa. And the last one is for best evaluator, and it goes to Stuart. I hope I pronounced your name right. Back to you, Toastmaster.
And before we round third and head home, I'm just going to ask for our grammarian port from Toastmaster Afia.
All right, so I guess I'll start with the filler words, although I don't want to, and it's my job, so I will. But I'll just say that absolutely everyone speaking today did an excellent job. It's been so inspiring to see your confidence. There were a few filler words used by Ali. There were 4 that I counted, ahs or ums. There were 11 I counted for Julian. There were 7 for Imani. Carissa used 8. David used 10. Stuart used 3. Jenny used 4. And Dr. Tran used 3 that I counted. In terms of interesting quotes and sayings, everybody had something very interesting to say. The ones that stood out to me were used by Eric. He mentioned something to the effect of, just as a blueprint is important in construction, a blueprint for life is just as important, which is a quote by Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. And also another quote was that was said to set out and do it as if God asked you to do it. And just resonates with me to put your whole heart into whatever it is that you do. Sarah, she mentioned a quote that I guess was misattributed to Michael Scott. It was a Wayne Gretzky quote, but you'll miss 100% of the shots that you don't take. And at least in my life, I feel that you got to put yourself out there and get uncomfortable and make mistakes, because sometimes you'll break through and things will work out well. Andrea had a quote that said, sometimes when people are trying to communicate with you, sometimes they need you just to give them some time and allow them to get out what they have to say. And it's just a matter of respect and courtesy. And it does a lot for those people to feel heard. And she also pointed out how the most effective communicators are both analytical and engaging. And for me personally, I tend to be in my head a lot. So that's really encouraging to know that I have an opportunity to become a confident communicator at some point. Dr. Tran, wow. Wow, incredible. In my first meeting back, just full of inspiration, full of enthusiasm, and you make me want to get out and do something. So I'm sure many of us feel the same way after hearing your speech. One of the quotes was to inspire to be selfish in order to be generous in the future, which I totally get it, and incredible quote. So those were the main takeaways. I did hear the word society used a few times. Gabe used society. Wonderful society meeting today. Eric used society twice in his talk, and David also used society. Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you, Mr. Grammarian. Just a few brief concluding remarks. This has been an excellent meeting. I just wanted to share a couple of comments of Dr. King. Obviously, he was an amazing public speaker, and I think all of us as Toastmasters could benefit learning from some of the speeches that he has done. And if you go to YouTube, you can actually watch most of them. What are my own personal takeaways from Dr. King's teachings? Number one is one person can make a difference. Number two, speak up for what you believe is right, that we should all stand against issues like injustice, inequality, poverty, suffering, even small instances. Do not remain silent. And in one way or another, regardless of how we look, how we speak, where we were born, what faith we follow, who we choose to love in our lives, we're all on this great journey together. And there's no room on our voyage for bigotry, discrimination, or hatred. In 1963, in his I Had a Dream speech, and Andrew already made mention of this, Dr. King said, "I have a dream that one day this nation will rise up, live out the true meaning of its creed. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal. We should all do what we can in some small way or big way to keep Dr. King's words and deeds alive." I'd like to turn the meeting back to our president, Madam Vanessa.
Thank you so much, Eric. Excellent job tonight as our Toastmaster of the evening. I loved your theme on Martin Luther King and his inspiration. It was very informative, very inspirational. And thank you everyone who attended and filled in roles. It was great to see so many of you both on Zoom and in person. And a special thank you to our guests who bravely participated in table topics. I usually like to ask our guests if you have any feedback, depending on what you learned or any suggestions or ideas. I know we had one guest on Zoom. Looks like maybe we lost our one Zoom guest, but I know we have a couple in person. So if Maddox or was it Carissa? If you'd like to share any thoughts, we'd love to hear from you.
Although this is my second time being here, I still feel very welcome by everybody coming, and I'm very grateful for this experience. And any feedback, everything's been pretty good so far. Everybody's been very positive and very encouraging, and that's all I have to say.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Maddox, for joining us. And special thanks to both of you, of course, for having the courage to do table topics.
Well, it's a pleasure being here, and I can honestly say that you guys are dynamic. So I've been in the corporate world for many, many years, probably more than you've been alive. So no, seriously, but dynamic speaking, and I forget the gentleman's name that is on the screen as well. And the young lady, she was just so. The word I want to use is explosive, but just it's engaging. So, and for me, I am relearning. I used to do a lot of public speaking, and so I am relearning the not to use the, like I just did right there, not to use the filler words. So, but this is it's such a great small environment and very very supportive, because in grad school the environment was cutthroat. So, but that's in a way that's how you learn. So everybody has done a fantastic job, and it's a pleasure to be here, and I look forward to being here more.
Thank you, Carissa. Pleasure to have you join us.
Vanessa, we have one more guest here. And I don't know if
Wonderful.
you got a chance to introduce yourself. You can do both at the same time if you want.
I'm Joe. I didn't get a chance to speak, but that just means I get to come back again. I thought everybody's speech was pretty engaging. I'm a big fan of The Office, so that was really cool seeing that. Dr. Chan got me hyped. I'm ready to go. And I can't remember her name, but I felt like she really sold her speech. Like she came up really slow and started in a certain way. I was thrown off. I can't remember anybody's name, but Ollie was touching on that, and I second his opinion. But it was really cool seeing everybody come up with a lot of confidence and giving their speech, and there's a lot of good things to see. I don't know if I have any other feedback or lessons learned or anything like that, but I'm excited to get more engaged and come back to some more.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Joe, for joining us tonight. Now, before we wrap things up, I did want to give out a little reminder to our members. As we know, we have our speech contest coming up on February 1st. That is exactly 2 weeks from today. So what I'd like is, if you are interested in competing, either at the 5 to 7 minute rehearsed speech, the table topics, or the evaluation, please do go ahead and sign up online. And we'd love it if you could sign up prior to next Tuesday's meeting, just so we have time to make sure we have all of our roles filled, and so we know what to expect on February 1st. So that would be awesome. And I will be your contest master coordinating the contest. And that would help me out immensely if we have a count of speakers / table topics / evaluators who are competing on February 1st. Super excited. And with that, I think that's all of my announcements. Are there any officers, club officers, who have any announcements before we wrap up? All right, I'm hearing silence. I think that's a good sign. So with that, thank you again, everyone, and I will see you next Tuesday. Have a great evening.